6 czerwca to oficjalna data premiery jednej z największych gier 2023 roku – Diablo IV. Co czeka graczy w tych piekielnych podziemiach? Posłuchajcie, co do powiedzenia mają dyrektor artystyczny John Mueller, zastępca reżysera gry Joe Piepiora i aktor podkładający głos pod postać klasy czarodzieja Joseph Balderrama, by dowiedzieć się więcej o wszystkich nowych funkcjach i easter eggach, a także poznać kilka porad ekspertów na temat budowania postaci. Chętnie poznamy też wasze zdanie, więc piszcie w komentarzach, co najbardziej podoba wam się w Diablo 4. Pierwszym tematem były ostatnie testy przed premierą Diablo 4 pod nazwą Server Slam, które dały graczom szansę na zapoznanie się z premierowym hack-and-slashem i zmierzenie się z nowym, potężnym przeciwnikiem. Nie tylko gracze zdobyli w tym czasie cenne punkty doświadczenia, ponieważ beta testy pomogły twórcom dopracować niektóre z elementów gry.
We had a lot of players get to dive into the server and try to take down Ashiva as one of our first world bosses the players are going to be able to experience in Diablo IV. They had a really difficult time going through and actually managing to defeat Ashiva, which we already knew was going to be a big challenge to them, being they only were level 20 and Ashiva is actually level 25. I think we did a good job in terms of like messaging that we have these two difficulty tiers, but we did make an adjustment to her health. Towards the end of the experience, we made a hot fix where you kind of reduce that a little bit.
Wykorzystując opinie graczy z wydarzeń takich jak testy na serwerze, twórcy Diablo 4 tworzą grę, która jest zarówno przystępna dla nowicjuszy, jak i zapewnia piekielnie trudne wyzwania, jakich oczekują doświadczeni pogromcy demonów.
As we're looking forward into the actual launch of Diablo IV, we're just thinking about the lowest level availability of the world bosses and how we want to tune some of those encounters to make it a little bit easier for some players to kind of initially get into, without sacrificing too much of the end game difficulty of these same encounters later on in the experience.
Kiedy zaczynamy nową grę w Diablo 4, od razu stajemy przed niezwykle ważnym pytaniem. Jaką klasą chcemy grać? Wybór może być nieco przytłaczający dla weteranów Diablo, a tym bardziej dla nowicjuszy tej serii. Na szczęście deweloperzy mają na to radę.
So I don't think there's really a bad class for players to try initially when they're playing Diablo 4. But if you want to play something that's particularly straightforward, then I would say that the sorcerer and sorceress, that class is very easy for a player to initially get into and understand. But really, there's no wrong decision to make. We want to make sure that in Diablo 4 that we unveil the depth and complexity of classes over time. It's not really until level 2 that you make your first choice in terms of what skill you actually want to be able to play with. You have a kind of a default one to start. And from there, as you're kind of progressing your character and uncovering how certain aspects of it work, we do slowly unveil those things to make sure that you have the context to know why you might make a decision.
Chociaż zawsze kusi, by od razu zacząć tworzyć doskonałą postać, Diablo 4 naprawdę zachęca do wybrania tego, co wydaje nam się po prostu ciekawe.
For the sorceress in particular, you're kind of choosing from like fire abilities or lightning abilities or cold abilities, and it's pretty easy to imagine well, kind of what fantasy do I want to pursue? What feels exciting to me?
The nice thing about Diablo is you can create multiple characters, and you can kind of figure out what fits your playstyle. Like, I never thought that I would be such a rogue player, because I always thought of myself as I really liked melee classes, but I think for me that's where I just realized wow, I actually really just love the agility of the class, and I love a lot of the ultimates and things like that.
Skoro wiemy już, jak powinni postępować nowi gracze, to co z powracającymi fanami Diablo? Jakich nowych rzeczy mogą się spodziewać w najnowszej odsłonie serii? Deweloperzy opowiedzieli nam, jak ciągle zmieniające się otoczenie i nowe wydarzenia w świecie gry mogą sprawić, że nawet najbardziej doświadczeni gracze Diablo zawsze będą odczuwać strach przed tym, co czeka na nich tuż za rogiem.
Because we have this more fixed world that you're kind of exploring and wandering through, there's a lot of opportunities to kind of modify that, provide new content opportunities inside of that space. So as you're wandering through the world, you'll find like local events, what we call them. You might find that a band of villagers have been attacked by like bandits or monsters, and go there and help them and fight them off and get some rewards for that. Next time you pass through, there might be like a broken carriage there, and it's actually a trap laid by bandits for you. And then we have other things like you mentioned world events. So as the player is going around the world, there are these parts of Sanctuary that have basically been taken by these massive creatures. During the recent betas we've done in the past, we actually had a big focus on Ashiva, who is one of our first world bosses that players are going to come across when playing through Diablo IV. She's a menace. She's a towering creature with these massive like wings and huge claws. And players are gonna have to work together with other players nearby to take down beasts of this size. It's kind of cool. We get really epic with it, where you like pull the camera back and you can see a little more of the field. You can see all these other characters that are trying to fight this massive monster at the same time. It makes for a pretty exciting experience.
Diablo 4 to jednak nie tylko epickie walki z bossami i niekończące się łupy. Nowa gra chce również opowiedzieć wciągającą historię o bitwie między niebem a piekłem i biednymi istotami ludzkimi uwięzionymi po środku. I tak, to dotyczy również was.
We knew it early on that we wanted to tell the story about Lilith and Inarius because it was such a compelling story about, the sort of creators of Sanctuary. We knew that the world of Sanctuary was going to be a major supporting character, and that they dovetailed nicely into like that narrative about the large open world and just like exploration of that and meeting all the people and seeing which sides people have chosen. There's the Triune who are worshiping Lilith and trying to, bring about essentially like a new age. And then there's Inarius and all of his followers with the Order of the Light. And they have this very sort of puritanical approach to purging evil in the world. And so you get to see how that plays out in all the villages and towns and the different locations. And, so when you have this huge open contiguous world and all those little stories and how they're interpreted, it just makes for a really compelling experience to go explore, find these little bits of details and kind of piece it all together.
If you have to choose between one side or the other, I think I probably would choose Team Lilith. But really, Mom and Dad are both pretty bad.
They're pretty bad.
They're pretty bad. So
it's a messy situation.
It's a very messy situation. I wish they wouldn't involve us in this particular feud they have.
Players are kind of like in the middle. There's a group called the Herodrum who are sort of the protectors and defenders of humanity, and that's who you're kind of grouped with. So you're sort of in this neutral space, but you get pulled in both directions through various like parts of the narrative. We've really leaned into narrative. We put your character into our in-game cutscenes, which is really exciting.
Diablo has always been a story that's kind of like told a bit from the player's perspective about the events of the eternal conflict and the things that are happening there. But now, particularly in Diablo IV, being able to take the player, the wanderer, as we call them sometimes, and really put them front and center in the middle of the experience, not as much a passive observer. It's been really exciting, a big change for us in Diablo IV.
By jeszcze bardziej ożywić postacie graczy, do Diablo 4 zaproszono kilku niezwykle utalentowanych aktorów głosowych, którzy użyczają swoich głosów w zależności od wybranej klasy i płci. Jeśli wybierzemy czarodzieja płci męskiej, w angielskiej wersji językowej towarzyszyć nam będzie głęboki głos doświadczonego aktora Josepha Balderramy, znany każdemu, kto grał w It Takes Two. I choć piekielny świat Diablo 4 jest daleki od tego, który przemierzał Cody, Balderrama od początku był pod jego ogromnym wrażeniem.
I was just so taken with how beautiful it was and how sort of it just looks. I've seen more now, and it just looks, to me, it looks like a painting. It's so much more than just a sort of game about hell. There's such high artwork in there, which only adds to the player experience. Not just a common or gardener RPG. I don't think it's got a lot more going on in terms of the experience and the artistry that's gone into making it look and feel the way it does. I think is amazing.
Aktorzy głosowi mają oczywiście mnóstwo materiału do wykorzystania dzięki wspaniałej oprawie graficznej Activision Blizzard, ale Balderrama czerpał również inspiracje z nieco zaskakującego źródła.
This is going to sound so bizarre, but he doesn't sound anything like him, but in my mind's eye, I had like Arnold Schwarzenegger from The Terminator in my head when I was thinking about the sorcerer, because he's this sort of like calm under all circumstances guy.
Wygląda więc na to, że deweloperzy mieli rację. Powinniście wybrać czarodzieja, jeśli chcecie przeżyć. A ponieważ ciekawość nie dawała nam spokoju, zapytaliśmy, jak wyglądało nagrywanie wszystkich tych stęknięć i krzyków, które postacie graczy tak często wydają.
Normally they tag it on at the end of a session, because vocally they're the most challenging sequences that you'll do. So you won't do a whole session of just grunts and screams and so on, but often they will also try and just minimize them because you end up doing so many through your time that you don't have to do a lot at one go. So yeah, you just kind of will tag it on at the end of a session, the last 10 minutes maybe you'll be jumping, leaping, dying, punching, all that stuff.
Można śmiało powiedzieć, że w Diablo 4 usłyszymy tego całkiem sporo. Kolejnym narzędziem, które ma sprawić, że gracze poczują się bardziej związani ze swoją postacią, jest nowy system dodatków kosmetycznych w Diablo 4. Zapytaliśmy twórców, jak on działa i czego gracze mogą się spodziewać, jeśli chodzi o upiększenie swojego wędrowca.
Once you get into the world, one of the really, great things to do is when you start just being able to transmog all the gear in the wardrobe and mix and match different pieces of gear that you find, and there's a lot of really wonderful thematic kind of different visual stories that you can kind of collect, like whether you're a necromancer, whether you're a sorcerer, or whether you're a druid. All that gear is unique to those characters. The gear systems are all unique to make those player fantasies. Like if you're a barbarian, all of that armor that you find is going to really make you look like an awesome barbarian, but then you can start to mix and match all the pieces to kind of make it your own.
Yeah, that's really important. So as you find, we have tons and tons of different appearances for all the armor and gear the players can acquire and wear in Diablo 4. When you find ones that you like, you can basically take those pieces back to the blacksmith in town. Whenever you salvage those, you're going to unlock that appearance for yourself in the wardrobe system that you can go and access from the various taverns throughout the game. You can change all your gear to look like whatever you want. So to John's point, you can mix and match those pieces. Maybe you really like the way that this particular helmet looks, but man, you love those boots, and you get to kind of play with all of those things. Then you can also dye those pieces as well, and sort of change the colors, and in some cases, almost a little bit of the material almost.
Sure, absolutely. It just really allows you to make your own, a little bit of your own fashion choices in the world, which is kind of fun, and it's all about making it an experience that's really custom to you.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to see your character up close in these cinematics, and
you want to look good, or dangerous, or deadly.
Diablo 4 jest dostępne od 6 czerwca na wielu platformach, ale twórcy stwierdzili, że dla prawdziwie piekielnych wrażeń zdecydowanie warto uruchomić grę na konsoli Xbox Series X.
Couch co-op on Series X is pretty fun. We've done quite a bit of it around the office, and it's I think it's we also have great features on Series X like ray tracing and support for higher resolution textures, and it really plays wonderfully on the X. It's my go-to console. I think one of my favorite stories I heard was it was a dad and son that were playing, and the son was the barbarian. So the dad was playing the support with the archer, with the rogue. So I think couch co-op is one of those things that brings families together and friends in a way that I think very few games do these days.
Wreszcie można śmiało powiedzieć, że podziemia Diablo wypełnione są nie tylko groźnymi przeciwnikami i łupami. Jest tam również mnóstwo easter eggów i ukrytych sekretów do odkrycia. I choć deweloperzy nie byli skłonni zdradzić nam wszystkich tajemnic, to dali kilka wskazówek podczas rozmowy o projektowaniu Sanktuarium.
I'm really excited for players to discover some of the hidden stuff that not just that I had a hand in, but also that the dev team in general has put in the game. There's a lot of detail out in the world, particularly if you're digging into things and looking around very carefully. I think that you'll be rewarded for that.
I would say that the world itself is very handcrafted. I think this is the thing that Blizzard really, we really had the time and space to make the world, to put little things all throughout the world to discover. This kind of open world game that's specific to an ARPG camera and sort of our gameplay style, the world is built for combat, right? So every square inch was built to fight in, to make fighting fun, to make combat fun, but also all these little secrets and lore elements that are kind of sprinkled throughout the world. You find, doors with keys that you're I don't know how to, what is this? But then you might go discover a quest that talks about a door or has something of oh, I remember that. I now have a way to get into that door and discover a quest that you had it's really kind of wonderful way to, just make the experience personal, is that discovery of the open world. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Oczywiście będziemy mieli dla Was więcej informacji na temat Diablo 4 w kolejnych dniach i tygodniach po premierze, więc pamiętajcie, żeby zasubskrybować nasz kanał i włączyć powiadomienia, żeby usłyszeć o wszystkim jako pierwsi. Trzymajcie się, cześć!